Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1979 horror film, Zombie. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on this film, I want to give a special shout out to Jonathan for requesting this review, as well as sending me the film on 4K. Now, if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would personally like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to my PayPal. The link will be in the video description down below, and I will try to get to it as soon as I possibly can. Now, Zombie is one of those films that I would say is one of my personal favorite zombie movies. Like, it wouldn't be in my top 10 like it is for some other people, but it'll probably make the top 20. Maybe a little bit lower on the list, but it's still a film that I do like. Mainly for some of the crazy sequences, like zombie versus shark, or the scene involving poor Paola and a piece of wood going right into her eye, and a few other moments involving the zombies, and the fact that, you know, it's got that signature Lucio Fulci style, albeit some of that style is kind of hit and miss, because this is proto Fulci, so he's not quite to the same level as he would be with even something like City of the Living Dead, which came out after this. But I still like it. And speaking of Lucio Fulci, might as well discuss his direction in this. Like I said, it's kind of hit and miss. Like, it's one of those films where it's decent. I would say that it's well directed for the most part. But when it comes to Lucio Fulci, it doesn't have the same style to it and flair consistently as a lot of his later films that would come out after this. So you don't have the same approach when it comes to light and shadow that really made a lot of his visuals pop. You don't necessarily have the same approach when it comes to camera angles or film techniques, because he's also just kind of starting out at this point. He had directed some other films before this, but a lot of them were giallo movies, nothing really like this. So he's still kind of working through some things here and trying things out. And it leads to some shots that are honestly really spectacular, like the sequence involving the zombie underwater battling the shark. And other sequences like the scenes where the zombies are rising up out of their graves. Specifically, there's one scene that I really love where it shows the point of view of a zombie rising out of the grave. And he does it with the camera as if the camera is buried underground and the camera is rising up. And I thought that was just a really clever and cool looking shot. So there are moments like that in Zombie where the direction will make you go, okay, that's really impressive. But then there's other moments where you're like, okay, that's just kind of bland. Where scenes kind of run together visually, they don't really pop. But there are other sequences, like the other scene involving Paola, the character Paola, where she's slowly dragged by a zombie, eye first, into a piece of wood. The way that scene was shot was also really incredible, if you ask me, in terms of the framing and the way that Fulci put together the shots. I mean, for maximum just shock value and just squirm factor, the scene just never fails to make me squirm every time I see it. But yeah, it's just one of those films where, yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag directing wise. I think Fulci did better, more consistent, more visually interesting films later on in his career, like The Beyond and City of the Living Dead and House by the Cemetery and so on. The screenplay is by Eliza Briganti and Dardano Sacchetti, and the script, to me, it's also quite serviceable. It really is pretty bare bones, though. There isn't a lot of depth to any of these characters, other than one of them. She's going to this island because I believe her father went missing or her father died, and she's just trying to find out the mystery of what happened to him. I believe it's the character who's known as Anne Bowles in the English dub, but in the Italian version, her name is Anne Bolt, and she's going to try to figure out what happened with her father. And other than that character, there's really not a lot. I mean, you could say Dr. Menard has a little bit because he's over there in the Caribbean and he's treating people and these patients that are afflicted with this mysterious disease, and he is well aware of what's happening and the zombie plague that's occurring and so on. And I think he's trying to maybe find a cure. I think that might have been one of the plot points, but I'm not 100% sure because, to be honest, the script wasn't really that interesting. It was kind of boring at times. What makes this film watchable and what makes it at all entertaining is the combination of Fulci's direction and zombies. When the zombies show up, when the zombies start rising from their graves and they start going after people and people start getting turned into zombies and things get really bloody and crazy, that's when the film is at its best. When it comes to scenes that are trying to be a little more emotional, scenes that are trying to be dramatic, scenes that are trying to establish the plot, or these paper thin characters, it really is not a very good a script or really that enjoyable of an experience. It's kind of a slog at points, especially early on. Like the scene with the zombie that's hiding away in the boat and in the river. I believe it's somewhere in New York City. Didn't really do anything for me. And it really wasn't until they got to the Caribbean and things really started to get uh, uh, nuts when the movie really started to pique my interest with any sort of consistency. And I think in large part it kind of has to deal with this script. Like, this is a screenplay thing. Have some more zombie attacks earlier in the movie. That would probably help a little bit instead of having the majority of them pretty much at the end of the film. Because it does take a little bit until you get zombie versus shark, or until you get the scenes where the zombies are rising out of the grave and they're going after the lead characters and people are trying to keep them away with torches and so on. And I do appreciate the ending as well. I think the ending, yeah, it's bleak, but it works. The film kind of had this bleak feel to it anyway, so the ending makes sense. I didn't mind that. The ending with the zombies taking over New York City. Yeah, the city is under attack by all of these zombies. But yeah, it's just one of those films where it's a movie that has enough moments of gore and just grisly sequences that make it a solid enough horror film as a whole. But if you break things down, there are elements of it that are less than impressive. And one of them is definitely the screenplay, which is just, other than these big moments, which I don't even know if they're really due to the script. Like, these could just be moments that they just came up with on the fly, or just to showcase the zombies. Now, the cast for Zombie, it's fine. This isn't one of those films though that really has a lot of opportunities for grand or great performances. But I would say there are some performers that stand out among the rest. For instance, Tisa Farrow is Anne Bolt. She's in a lot of ways the lead of the film. And I definitely feel that she's a pretty talented actress. She's done some good work in other films other than Zombie. And she's good here. Her character definitely is also a character that has the most meat on the bone. There's the most for her to chew on or to work with compared to other actors. So she's definitely given more opportunities to really showcase whatever acting ability she has. Um, Compared to you know, Richard Johnson as Dr. Menard, or Olga Karlatos as Paola, or Auretta Gay as Susan Barrett. I mean, Auretta Gay just spent the majority of the film just being half naked. Really, that was most of her performance. Or Al Cliver is Brian Kurt. But yeah, Tisa Farrow and Ian McCulloch I would say were probably the best performers compared to Richard Johnson as Dr. Menard and the others that I mentioned. Um, but I'm not going to sit here and say that there were actors that were just outright terrible or considerably bad. For this kind of film, they were fine. Um, the cinematography by Sergio Salvati, I think at times it was definitely pretty nightmarish. Had some surreal looking scenes of horror. I think it was a well shot film. They did a good job utilizing the setting where they shot the film in Santo Domingo. And I think the editing by Vincenzo Tomasi is also pretty solid. Not a lot of moments where things look like they're a little bit too off kilter or just off in general. Pretty well edited movie, considering the fact that a lot of the film was just very risky if you think about it. I mean, the whole underwater sequence with a zombie versus a shark, and this isn't like, oh, it's a zombie and a fake shark. No, there are actual sharks and an actual stuntman who's underwater interacting with real sharks. And you also have like actresses who were swimming underwater pretty much naked. I mean, this actress, she didn't have a top on, didn't really have anything other than a G string on, and she's completely naked for the most part, swimming with fucking sharks and hiding in the corner and some coral. Like, I mean, this is nuts. This is kind of stuff where, this could have gone horribly awry. But they lucked out and everything worked out okay, even though they were shooting in shark infested waters and were dealing with a lot of things that were honestly out of their control. And you also have a really just awesome score by Fabio Frizzi. A lot of the film is elevated just by this score. Fabio Frizzi is honestly one of my favorite composers. He's right up there with Goblin and John Carpenter, Alan Howarth, Christopher Young. A lot of composers that I just really, really like when it comes to the horror genre. And I feel that Fabio Frizzi is right up there. I feel that his music really did create a certain just eerie, just disturbing mood and atmosphere at times, and just really did a good job creating the apocalyptic vibes that I think Fulci was trying to go for, and just made the scenes with the zombies all the more tense and at times kind of terrifying because of just the presence of this score. Uh, just a wonderful score. Just a lot that you can really glean from it when it comes to the compositions. The only other thing I think would be worth mentioning about the movie is definitely the makeup. I think it has some good makeup effects. I definitely feel that this zombie is the biggest standout. But there's a few other moments with the makeup effects where the look of the different zombies definitely gives them their own sort of personality. They definitely look rotted. They look pretty gross. They got worms hanging out and crawling out of different parts of their body. They definitely aren't the kind of zombies that just have like grease paint on and a little bit of blood. Like, no, these are some pretty gnarly looking zombies. And some effective throat rips in terms of the gore. Uh, a really strong bit of practical effects when it comes to the scene where Paolo, her eye gets stabbed with a piece of wood. Um, And yeah, even the makeup that they used for the zombie underwater, like they did a good enough job that it wasn't just completely flaking off and just falling off in every scene when they're shooting in the water. Um, yeah, some good makeup effects. And I mean, it's 91 minutes, and that's with the end credits. You take out the end credits, it's even shorter. So it's not a film that's particularly super boring, but there are some moments where it is a bit too slow and shambles around a little bit too much. But overall, I still liked it, and I would recommend it. I definitely would recommend the film if you are a fan of Italian horror films and just zombie films in general. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about Zombie except thanks for watching my review of the film. And until next time, see you later. See ya.